Welcome to Biz Coach and Coffee, where our guests are experts, entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants that share tips, strategies, and tactics to help small business entrepreneurs grow their business for long-term success. Please welcome your host, Biz Coach Steve Feld.
Hello, I'm Biz Coach Steve Feld, and my goal is to stop business owners from suffering entrepreneurial depression and start making running their businesses much easier. Business owners and entrepreneurs hire me to crack multiple 6 and 7 figures without burning themselves out. Today, we have another wonderful guest for you. We have Jen Liddy. Now, you already know that great content is non-negotiable in today's online market. So true. But knowing what to say and how to say it so your content can eventually convert your audience into customers, well, that's where most small business owners get really stuck. And today's guest will help us unpack all the content, learn simple, realistic, sustainable strategies to create marketing content that'll leverage your ideas and turn them into words that make some money for your business. So please welcome Copy and Content Strategist, Jen Liddy. Welcome, Jen.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being on the show. So the first question is I always have to ask because everyone always wants to know, how did you start your business and why?
It's as everybody else's, it's a very windy, zigzaggy road. I used to be a high school English teacher, and then I moved into teaching college because I thought like, oh, if I don't have to deal with parents, then teaching will be a joy. And it still was not a joy because I still had to grade crappy research essays and deal with people who didn't want to be in the room with me. In 2013, I got this opportunity with a friend who owned a fitness studio business to join her and help her with like the back end stuff, like organization, communication, basically like all the operational things. And so I jumped in from being a teacher for like 317 years of being a teacher to being an entrepreneur. And I basically, you know how it is at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. And I bumped into every wall and made all the mistakes. And this was a 9,000 square foot brick and mortar fitness studio. So there was a lot to deal with. But you get up to speed very quickly, you figure things out. And then around 3.5 years in, we definitely burned out. We weren't making enough money to pay ourselves. We were making enough money to cover our costs, but not paying ourselves. So after 3.5 years of that, we closed down the business. I left and I started just helping people start their businesses. I was an accountability coach, and then I just called myself a business development coach. But then I realized really pretty quickly my magic is it's based in being an English teacher. I'm really good with words. I'm really good with listening and asking the good questions. So I can pull out the content from your head that you have up there in your own special way and kind of reformulate it with you and help you put it out into the world so that your marketing can be better. So that's how I became a copy and content strategist, because I'm great at the words and I'm great at systems. So I mashed them together, and that's where I am now.
Oh, excellent. It's funny you mentioned that. My very first business, I was writing business, marketing, operational plans for tech startups so they can get capital money. Yeah. And grammar is not my strength. So I had actually a copywriter, 2 copywriters on my staff because that's their strength.
Yes.
And I tell business owners this all the time. If this is not your strength, don't do this to yourself. Hire the right people, someone like you, to do all the copywriting and the content, because you got to get it out in a correct way. There is a formula.
Yeah. And you can really learn how to do this for yourself. So I'm not a copywriter. I'm more going to teach you how to find your words and say it in your way. I'm a really huge believer in content that you need to sound like you. You don't need to sound like an internet guru. You don't need to sound like a robot. And if you've been raised in an academic setting or an industry setting, you're used to things being very formal and very hierarchical, but that's not the way it works in marketing. But I believe everybody can learn to do this stuff if you want to learn to do this stuff. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is like simple strategies to make your content feel more like you and practical. And the goal is for it to work better. That's what we want people to walk away with.
There you go. Where do you see like most small business owners, entrepreneurs, what do you think their number one problem is when it comes to all this content creation?
I feel like I'm always saying, this is your number one problem. And then there's like seven. But,
and there's another. And here's your other number one problem.
Here's another one. Here's another one. One of the big things that's pretty easy to solve for is saying too much in your content. And that can look like a lot of things. That can look like, I'm an expert in this, and say I'm going to write an email about this topic, and I am going to tell you everything there is to know about this topic because I'm an expert and you and my audience need to know it, right? But what that does is it fire hoses your audience. And Steve, because you're out in the world, you are probably at capacity in your own life. Our audience is at capacity in their lives. We are at capacity in our creative lives. So how can we take something that we would normally fire hose people with and inundate them so to the point where they just like can't even absorb it? Right. And what I like to do instead is I like to ask creators, you know a lot about this topic. What if instead of shoving it down everybody's throat in one fell swoop, you broke it up and you chopped it up into what I call fish food, which gives people the time to like kind of take their little nugget of fish food, go back to their little castle in the sand, digest it, and come back for more when they're ready. And that gives you as the creator license to kind of wring more out of your content. So say you had a huge blog post that was about something like, the real estate market or boundaries in your relationships or whatever. And you have so much to say about it. I guarantee if you wrote it all down and you start chopping it up, you've probably got 3, 4, 7, 8, 10 blogs in that one piece. And how can you parse it out to people? You're not only doing yourself a favor, but you're doing your audience a gigantic favor. And so that is one of the most easy things for people to start doing is chunk up your work, chunk up your writing, chunk up what you have to say.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was that guy, just the verbal diarrhea. Here's everything.
Yeah.
And then I started chunking it up, and I've done 5-day challenges, things I would have taught in a classroom in 3 hours. It's like, now I'm going to spread it in bite-sized pieces over 5 days where it's digestible. And the results are like way better.
Much better.
All the participants.
Yeah. Our goal as content creators, whether we're running a challenge or we're sending 2 weekly emails or we have a podcast, our goal as creators is to make it absorbable and actionable for our people and to nurture them. That's the whole goal of content, to nurture people so that they can eventually come to trust and then try working with you. But if they are just completely flattened by the amount of sheer information, there's another thing that happens when we're doing that is sometimes our audience is like, oh, Steve just told me exactly how to do XYZ in this enormous blog post. There's 3 steps. He's broken them all down for me. So now I should be able to do this myself, right? And that shoulding all over ourselves, it makes us think we should be able to do it ourselves. But honestly, if we could do it ourselves, we already would have done it ourselves. Yeah. And so when we give our people a huge how-to filled piece of content, we think we're doing them a favor. We think we're giving them a lot of value, but what we often are doing are further keeping them from taking action, because in their brain, they're like, oh, I'm going to bookmark this blog, or I'm going to bookmark this post, and I'm going to go back to it. So it actually keeps your audience from ever getting the transformation or the result that they're actually looking for. So that's another way that too much information can really bite us in the butt as creators.
It's so true. I wrote a blog series with 6 parts because I could have put it in one, like most people do. And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to get it and make it so simple that it'll give them time now. And I gave them like, here's what you do next. Simple action items. It was only this many.
2. Yeah.
Don't go crazy, people.
It's so true. We need a lot less. And you'll see that in courses too. So beyond the nurturing content, when somebody comes into your world, then there's a whole different kind of content that you're going to give them. And, you think you need to give them like a workshop that covers the breadth of everything that every contingency they could possibly imagine. And again, that's a way that kind of content bites us as creators in the butt, but it also keeps our audience from getting results. And that is the goal of our content, to help people shift into trusting us, not to solve their problems. Our free content doesn't need to solve their problems. Our free content needs to help them believe that a solution is possible and that we potentially could be the right person to help them. I think that's another mistake people make, is my free content is supposed to solve your problem. And that is just impossible.
It really is. And I've had this talk because I have coaches underneath me, and one's trying to solve everyone's problem before they even get on a phone call with them. And it's like, well, you don't know their problem, so how are you solving? Everyone has different little idiosyncrasies. Same thing what you're talking about in the content. How can I solve your problems when I'm just trying to open you up? Like, this is one problem I solve. Which is a difference.
I'm just trying to get. Sorry, go ahead. Can you repeat?
How do you tell people about how to go about that? It's like, one is solving a problem, one is introducing the problem.
Yeah, so that speaks to the client journey, right? So when people come to your content, they might not even be aware that the name of the problem you solve for exists. So they might be completely problem unaware. I'm going to give you an example that I think makes this really clear. So so I'm 52 right now. When I moved into my 40s, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of physical and mental shifts started happening. I had brain fog, I gained weight, I couldn't sleep, like all the things. But I did not know at that point that menopause was the problem, right? So I did not have the language that I needed to know that that was my problem. So I was problem unaware. So I wasn't like seeking out solutions for that. If I had stumbled across content that spoke to me about my symptoms, right? Like, are you finding that when you get on the computer and you do something for a few minutes and you turn away and you come back, you can no longer focus? Like, oh, now I'm seeing myself in your marketing mirror. Or if somebody had said, oh, are you waking up at 1:27 a.m. every night, drenched in sweat, can't get back to sleep? Oh, yeah. And then took me on a journey of developing a relationship with me to expose me to the problem and give me names and give me words and give me solutions. That's the journey that our content can help people see themselves in. And I call it a marketing mirror, right? Like, you want people to see themselves, but they might not be ready to hear, like, at 40, I wasn't ready to hear you're in menopause. I was ready to hear, hey, here's some problems or symptoms you're having. Let me take you by the hand and guide you down this path of what's really going on. Does that clarify that?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. I think that's, you just nailed it, because what we say as our language, our business language, if you will, may not really hit someone because they're talking in a totally different language.
That is so true. Especially coaches and experts have this problem, because there's coachese, right? It's like there's legalese. Or when I was a teacher for high schoolers, we had our very own language of how we talked about the educational process, right? But if you're speaking a language, for example, like a lot of transformational coaches will use words like empowerment or transformation and spirituality and healing. Like, they use their own vernacular. But if your audience is not schooled in what those words mean, it means nothing. And the best example I ever had of this was when I was moving from the brick and mortar fitness studio to becoming a coach. I really wanted to help people stop being stressed out, stop feeling burned out. But when I did my target market interviews with my people I wanted to work with, they never used the word stressed out or burned out. So imagine if I had developed all my content and my website and all my messaging around stressed out and burned out. Like, it would have been like two ships passing in the night. It never would have landed. So another mistake people make is using the language or the vernacular or the jargon that they use every day with their people and not thinking about how their audience talks about those things.
So true. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Jen, because we're going to dig in a little bit deeper on that, because this is so true and we see it everywhere. We'll be right back. Most business owners do not set time out of their busy schedule to create a solid strategic plan for the new year, and then they flounder around and have to figure out everything as the year moves on. So why not have a set plan for your business in 2023? Join us for our strategic planning workshop content filled, and it's going to provide you with the basics to create a solid strategic plan for your business in 2023. The link will be in the show notes. Start your business off right. Have a strategic plan. Well, welcome back. We're here with Jen Liddy, and we're breaking it down on your content, and you need to speak the language of your target market, which is probably a lot different than the language that's going on in your head. So what we just talked about is a great strategy. What's another great strategy that people can speak the language of their target clients?
Well, if you haven't talked to your people in a while, and maybe you've done your research a couple of years ago or even a year ago, I highly recommend having some calls to just talk with them and find out. It's simple, right? Like, what are you struggling with? What do you want? Because we think people want a certain thing, but the way that they might describe it might be very different. The way that you might describe what your people want also might be different than it was even 2 years ago. So our audiences have really changed. So getting on the call with people to find out, what are you struggling with? What do you want? What's keeping you from having it? What have you already tried? But beyond that, now I'm not talking about demographics here. I'm really talking about understand the qualities of your people and the words that they use. But I'm also really curious to know how people feel about something. Yesterday, I was talking to a copywriter, and she has the things you need with creating content. You need good copy that converts. You need messaging that's clear so people see themselves, and you need systems so you can put it out there regularly. And if you don't have one of those things, there's there's a clog in the artery, and that's a problem. Well, she has all three of those things, but she doesn't have this secret fourth thing, which is I don't really have the courage to put myself out there. And again, that would be a whole other piece of content I could talk about. I mean, I could teach you everything about copy, messaging, and systems, but if you don't have the courage to put it out there and be seen and be visible, then you're never going to do it. And so talking about people's feelings is important, understanding their feelings, and understanding the words they use to describe their feelings, and understanding the thoughts that lead to those feelings. Those are really important aspects that if you talk to your potential people and just have a virtual coffee with them, record everything that they say, and then understand the words they're using and reflect that back in your content. That would be a strategy that's important.
I learned that years ago. I kept calling my clients small business owners. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my one-on-one clients are CPAs, and they go, we don't see ourselves like that. And I go, how do you see yourself? They go, as a CPA.
Yeah.
And I go, well, you are a small business owner. They're like, yeah, but we don't call ourselves that. And then I found a different demographic that was my clients in group coaching and everything else. They referred to themselves as entrepreneurs, not business owners.
Yes.
So, that was. And how did I find out? I just
talked to them. And I noticed at the beginning of our talk today, you had a lot of descriptors for people like course creators, coaches, experts. There's service providers, there's entrepreneurs, there's small business owners. There's people really use different words. And I think we can't ever find that one word that gets everybody. No. But certainly the more you talk to the people you love working with, you get a little flashlight shined on that and be like, oh, this is the word you should start using.
Absolutely. And I've had to add that. And I was like, I grimaced and I fought it. But that's the language of my market. And that's who I serve. So it's I need to speak their language, not my language.
That's right. If anybody in the audience has a teenager, you will understand this very clear, because if you want your teenager to do something, you need to speak in the way that a teenager needs to be able to hear you, which isn't always the way I want to speak. Right. But what is my eventual outcome? I want the stuff taken off the stairs and put up in your bedroom. I want the laundry folded. How can I get there? And it's the same thing when we're talking about content to our audience. We have to meet them where they are, not where we know they can eventually be.
Exactly. Well, if you speak grunt, you got every teenage boy figured out, right?
That doesn't always get me the result I'm looking for.
No, not the same results, because you said the wrong grunt.
You Ask the question in the wrong way.
Wrong way. I know. Nope. I told him to do something else. At least that's what I find with my son.
Same.
So, talking about your business, what is one lesson you learned the hard way? I mean, you said you got to the point of burnout in one of your businesses, which happens to, I think, a majority of business owners, because they're trying to do everything all by themselves. And
yeah,
we've all been there, unfortunately.
Yeah. This idea of burning out I think happens because small business owners, experts, service providers, coaches, they all see problems in the world, and their job is to solve all of those problems because they're creative, they're smart, they're trained, they're experts. And so you see a problem, you're like, oh, I could do this, which adds a whole other, like maybe spoke to your business or a whole other element to your business. But every single idea you have, there's a whole machine behind the idea. So for example, say that you've been working one-to-one with people and you're like, oh, I really want to do a small group program. I really want to do a workshop. Great. You probably have the expertise to do that. You could see it in your brain. You know how it would look. You know, you could help. But there's so much that goes into that. Besides creating the workshop, there's the landing pages and the sales pages and the thank you emails and the marketing emails and the setting up all of the tech. And so I think I get stuck sometimes in the way a lot of other creatives get stuck, which is you can see it in your head. You want to put it in the world to solve a problem, but you only have so much capacity. Even when you have a team, you still only have so much capacity. And that is a wall I bump into all the time because I want to do it all. It's fun. It's fun. And it's just not fun to do, like, to do it at a snail's pace, which is how it feels sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, this is something I did with some of my clients is like, okay, what's your mission? What's your purpose? Okay, from here on, everything you do, you have to ask the question, does this satisfy our mission and our purpose? It's either yes or no. There's no gray, no maybe. And if it's no, get it off your plate as fast as possible. You can put it on the sideline, park it, because maybe it's not right now. It could be later on in the future. And I did it with one of my clients, and it was like they went hyper focus mode and their business started blowing up because they were doing one of those, trying to solve all the world's problems. And if they would stay in their lane, that's where they were best at. Don't get in the other lane.
I actually just had this conversation with myself because, as a former teacher, I can help you create a workshop. I can help you create a curriculum. I can help you create anything because I'm good at words, right? And I'm good at systems. But what I really love helping people do is understand how to create exactly what they need to nurture their audience so they can show up regularly. I'm not going to be a copywriter for sales pages. That's somebody else's lane. My lane is helping you develop, nurture copy messaging and systems. That's what I do. So when you get into that lane, it reduces all the noise in your head, I think.
It does. And your creativity actually gets really like lasered in. And it's
I think we resist that though. Like, no, I want to do more. I can only be creative if I do more. And that's just, it's kind of the opposite.
It is it's definitely what you think, oh, I'll do more and it's better. And it's like your target market, my target market is everyone. Got to fire that. It's not, but
that
know your target market, Steve. And your business will grow.
Yes. And so when we're talking about the target market, we already talked about like the audience language, the audience journey. But again, the more you can lean into being you, you're going to attract the audience that wants to be around that and like sop up what you have to say and everything you're giving off with a biscuit because you're more you're not generic. And you and I are not like, we're not talking demographics. We're not talking women 35 to 55. Like we're more talking about the qualities of those people. And if in your content, you can lean into that and understand the qualities of your people, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they want, and what they're struggling with, the quality of your content will raise way up.
Absolutely. Well, all my guests usually give away something. Is there something you can give away to our listeners that'll help them in their businesses?
Yeah, one of the struggles I've seen a lot of people have with their nurturing content is being able to show up consistently, because consistency doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. Consistency to one creator might be doing 3 reels a day, and consistency to somebody else is showing up once a month on their email list. So how do you plan for your personality and the consistency system that will work for you? So I created I call it oh my God, I can't believe I'm stumbling over my words. It's the customized content planner, because there's no one way to do this stuff. And so it's not a big rectangle with a bunch of squares in it telling you what to post. It actually teaches you how to think in a way that works for your brain, your style, your strengths, and teaches you how to get way more mileage out of your content.
Oh, nice. And we will have the links to all of Jen's programs, her great gifts. So take advantage of it. We'll have all the links in the show notes. So take advantage of her gift. Why not? If it's going to help you in your business.
Thank you.
Well, as we're wrapping up, any final words for our listeners?
I always really try to encourage people I've said it throughout this interview, but to just be more you. The more you can use your personality, even if you're quirky or you're weird or you let your freak flag fly or you're serious, or like whatever the you-ness is, if the more that can show up, and it doesn't mean you have to be like vulnerable and bring everybody into the doctor's office with you in your content, but you do need to have a personality and let it shine.
Oh, that's great advice. Well, thank you very much, Jen, for being our guest and sharing your knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you. I hope somebody took one thing away from today. That's my goal.
And for everyone listening, please, if you like Jen and our other guests, make sure you like and subscribe to whatever channel you are on. We have plenty of them. And then give us a positive review. Let us know how we're doing. Yeah, saying that's a great show. That helps. But give us a little bit more. What did you take away from the show? That'll be even better for us. Once again, this is Biz Coach Steve Feld, wishing you and your business much success.
We hope you enjoyed today's topic. If you'd like to discuss how you can apply these strategies in your business, let us know. This episode is sponsored by Spotlight Books. Get your own expert book written about you in 30 days. Set yourself apart from the competition. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. Also, feel free to give us your comments. We look forward to hearing from you on Biz Coach and Coffee.